Hi guys, it's Kelly Latabola here, and welcome to Simon Says Stamps Believe in the Season blog hop. So today we're going to be using the Happy Christmas Sentiment set and then the Poinsettia stamp set. These are both new releases, as is the new ink that's barely blue, and it's just a really pretty grayish blue. My bedroom's actually the walls are this color, so I knew I wanted to incorporate it into the card. I'm using just an ink blending tool. I'm kind of blotting it off on my grid paper before I put it to my actual cardstock. I'm using Nina for this particular card, and it's cut to 5.5 by 4. So I went ahead and put my the blue ink down in the background, and I worked kind of as like elongated diamond shape because I knew that's how my card was going to flow. And then I'm just going to do some stamping here. Normally I do one layer cards, which I totally love, but it's fun to kind of give things some real dimension and not just a look of dimension. So today we're going to be doing some fussy cutting as well. So I'm going to stamp them twice. I found over the years doing flower arrangements that stamping them out on my card base really helps me. So even though it looks kind of like a mess when I'm putting everything together at the end, I already know where everything's going to be placed, so I don't have to worry about it. You could also do this as a one layer card and just mask the flower and stamp the leaves around it, and it would totally work as a one layer card too. The reason that I'm coloring this particular leaf on the actual card base is because my sentiment is going to be stamped over top of it, so I didn't want it to be raised up. That way there won't be any skipping, but all of the other leaves were stamped a second time and then fussy cut out. If you watched my videos before, you know that my preferred coloring medium is Copics, and that's what I'm using today. I really love these leaves. There's a lot of different ways to give them a look of dimension. I chose to really play on those peaks and valleys that are kind of drawn in with the veins, and then also the leaves are very wavy. They're not a smooth-sided leaf, so you can really add in some shading to the sides that isn't necessarily there. It's just maybe an indent here or an indent there, and just by adding the shading, you can really give your leaf that dimension so it pops off the page. So basically what I do when I look at them, I always start with my lightest color, from lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest. That's how I color mine. I shade my images twice. But I'm looking on the outside edges to see where can I add in a little indent here or there just to give it some movement. And you wouldn't think just like a little triangle of color would make that much difference, but it really does. And it helps to just really bring out those highlights versus the shadows, and that's what's going to give you, your look of realism. So I'm using just a light hand and a flicking motion for all of my coloring, and I'm being careful to leave myself a highlight, even though I'm going over everything at the end with the lightest color, which in this case is YG93. I'm still leaving that white area when I color the leaves, so that way it's the lightest possible version of the color that I'm using. For the poinsettia, I've colored a lot of poinsettias over the years, and so this time I decided I was going to go with a red and white poinsettia, just something that a little different. I knew my card was going to be very clean and simple, and this would be more of a eye-catching focal point. So in order to get that red and white look, I'm doing the same feathering technique that I did with the leaves, but I'm concentrating my color in the center of the flower, so at the base of those petals, but then also in the center of the petals. So as I stretch that color up out into the tips of the petals, not all the way to the tips because the tips are supposed to be white, but I am just mostly spending time with my marker just in the center there. And you'll see as it starts to come together, like I said, I always do everything twice. So from lightest to darkest, darkest back into lightest. For the flower, I didn't show you both because I am literally doing the same thing over and over again. Just very quick stripes. This does take some practice. You want to use a light hand and just the tip of your marker because you want those colors to blend in together. You don't want any real thick lines at the end. And like I said, no nobody starts off doing this perfectly, and I certainly didn't. And it took me a long time to figure out what was going to be comfortable for me, how to hold my marker to get those really thin lines. So don't be too hard on yourself. Just keep practicing at it. I'm sure whatever you're doing is going to be beautiful. For my darkest color, I only put like a stripe in the center and then just a few little flicks of color at the base. And then started back on my way down to my lightest color to blend everything out. The only, I did two other things to the flower. I colored in the center with like a golden color. I was going to go over it with a metallic marker, which I do at the end. But I wanted to make sure in case I missed any spots, there wasn't going to be anything bare. And then I went in with a C1, and I probably could have gone a little bit darker, but I chose not to. And I just added the C1 on the petals that are underneath. So I added in the white shadows with the gray marker, but just in the areas where petals are laying on top of each other. I just didn't want it to seem like the white had no shading. For the base of the card, which is what we're working on here, I wanted to, even though it's going to be popped up, I wanted it to be super dimensional and have some really cool shadows. So I'm going back in with some blue markers that I picked that match that Barely Blue ink from Simon. And it was maybe a little brighter than I had intended it to be, but it was still really pretty shadow. And I did my light sources if it was in the top right. Just for something a little bit more fun. Whenever I think of holidays, Christmas, I always think metallics. I can't get away from it. So I'm using some gold perfect pearls, and I'm just going to scoop out a little bit on a block. I learned my lesson a long time ago to move my project away when I'm spraying those little mini misties with perfect pearls because they will splatter all over the place. So I'm not working on watercolor paper, but I did want to put the gold splatters in the background. So I just keep a clean paper towel by, and then as soon as I am done doing the splattering, I blot it off with the paper towel. This doesn't pick up any of the pigment, but it does pick up the moisture, so my regular cardstock doesn't pill. So a way that you can kind of use those splatters without necessarily having to work on watercolor cardstock. I'm using my mini Misty to stamp my sentiment, and I will tell you that I did lay the sentiment down when I was figuring out how I wanted my leaves to be so that everything kind of fit nicely. I'm stamping in black Simon Says Stamp ink. It's a really good crisp ink for sentiments. And then I have, off camera, because it took long, it was a very intricate cut, I fussy cut all the leaves and the flower, and then I went around the edges with a black Memento Tuxedo black marker just to clean up the edges. I'm going to pop up the flower on foam. Even though I glued the leaves down flat, they still have more dimension than just the flat piece of paper because it's two pieces together. And then I'm going to pop this one up, so it's going to be 3 layers of dimension. The regular card panel, the leaves on top of that, and then finally the flower. And I was really happy with the way that the flower turned out, just, something kind of different. This is a jelly roller in gold. I have one in gold and one in silver. I think there's a bronze one too in the pack. Really worth the buy if you make holiday cards. I just added some Schoolhouse Red on to a card base and then mounted my card panel flat on that. And that's the entire card. So thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching this during October of 2016, there is a giveaway during this blog hop. So if you're watching on YouTube, check out the link below and come on over to the blog and maybe have a chance to win something and see some other really awesome designers. So I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.